Previously, Jin-Woo saved Cha Hae-in's life by transforming Min Byung-gu into a shadow soldier. As the Korean hunters departed, Jin-Woo stayed behind to clear the remaining ants. Afterward, he reached level 100 and resurrected the Ant King as a shadow soldier, naming him Beru. New characters were introduced, including a Chinese S-rank hunter and to potential future enemies, while Sung-Il Hwan, Jin-Woo's father, observed them from the shadows. After the Jeju Island raid, Jin-Woo honored those who had lost their lives. He then secured permission to open his own guild before stepping into another Red Gate alone. Inside the Red Gate, Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers fought against the gate's monsters. He eventually found the boss, who asked if he was the one responsible for killing his people. The creature expressed its surprise that Jin-Woo had made it this far with such a small body, but declared that this was where it would all end. It ordered its minions to attack, having stationed them in advance for an ambush. However, nothing happened. Confused, the creature wondered why its minions were not responding. Then we see Jin-Woo standing there, smirking. He taunted the creature, saying, "Call me small, now that's funny." At his signal, the area began to fill with shadow soldiers emerging from the forest, carrying the severed heads of the defeated minions. Jin-Woo continued to mock the boss, saying, "Seems like no one is left." The creature, realizing what had happened, began to panic. Suddenly, something struck its face, a corpse of one of its fallen minions. Looking toward Jin-Woo, who stood alongside his army, the creature became desperate and ordered its henchmen to attack. Jin-Woo, in turn, commanded his soldiers to eliminate all enemies. The battle began. However, the shadow soldiers were far superior to the opposing forces and swiftly wiped them out without any difficulty. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo advanced toward the boss, with Tank clearing a path for him. Seeing this, the boss flew into a rage and charged at Jin-Woo. However, before it could do anything, Beru and Igris attacked. Beru severed one of its arms, while Igris sliced off one of its legs, causing the creature to collapse. As it struggled, it saw Tusk looming over it, using his ability, Inverse Gravity, to pin it to the ground. With the boss immobilized, Jin-Woo slowly approached. Looking it in the eyes, he said, "Now, you will answer my questions. It will be less painful for you if you do." After interrogating the creature, he stood before its lifeless body, realizing he had once again failed to obtain any valuable information. He muttered it must be the system interfering again. Opening his inventory, he pulled out a key he had received from the cursed random box. "I reached level 100 at the Jeju Island raid and met the minimum requirements to unlock the dungeon," he thought. As he examined the key, he saw its description. It was the key to the Karthanan temple. A timer displayed how much time remained before he could enter. Once the countdown expired, the key would disappear. Reading the description, Jin-Woo recalled memories of his past experience in that dungeon. He thought to himself, "The system is calling me back to where it all started, but this time, things were different." He had grown much stronger. He wondered if everything had been planned from the beginning. Was something waiting for his return, if so? "Then wait for me," he said with determination. Inside the dungeon, an unknown entity smirked upon hearing his words. "I'll be coming soon." The scene shifts to a dungeon where a man is panicking as a dark figure stands before him. The man asks the creature about its identity, and the figure replies, "He's not the one either. They're hiding cleverly, aren't they?" The brilliant fragment of light, Silid, the king of snowfolk and the monarch of frost, notices something behind him. As he turns, he sees Yogamint, the king of demonic specters and the monarch of transfiguration. Yogamint tells Silid that he has come to inform him about the East Island. Silid asks if he is referring to the small island, noting that it is the domain of the Shadow Monarch. He then inquires whether Yoja has decided to take care of that place. Yogamint responds that the rulers have decided to release their legions south of that location, adding, "I'll take that place." Silid asks, "How do you plan to deal with the Shadow Monarch, who is also there?" Yogamint replies, "It'll be alright if the planner fulfills the contract." With his smirk, he adds, "The greatest fragment of brilliant light has been confirmed in that place as well." Hearing this, Silid becomes excited. He asks, "You intentionally came here just to tell me that?" Yogamint then asks what Silid plans to do with that information. Silid replies, "If you are willing to follow me, then why not?" During their conversation, Silid suddenly notices something. He turns to Yogamint and says, "It looks like we were being lured here." Another person walks up to them. Silid comments, "The person earlier couldn't possibly wield the power of the brilliant fragments of light, so I was wondering why a trace of that power was here. This person intends to get in our way." With rage in his eyes, the man asks them about the small island to the east, questioning if they are referring to Korea. Silid smirks and asks, "What are you going to do about it?" From behind, Yogamint interjects, "We do not have time to deal with him." As they begin to leave, Silid taunts the man, "Try and stop us if you can." The man charges toward them, declaring, "I won't let you escape." As he strikes, Silid effortlessly blocks the attack with his ice shield. With a grin on his face, he prepares to counterattack. As he unleashes his power, a massive explosion engulfs the area. The scene then shifts to Jin-Woo as he walks to his car. Just as he is about to open the door, a man approaches him and asks, "Excuse me, are you Jin-Woo?" He introduces himself as Adam White, a senior official from the Federal Bureau of Hunters. Adam hands Jin-Woo his business card and says, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Sung. Feel free to call me Adam." He apologizes for the sudden appearance, explaining that Jin-Woo has been difficult to track down. He even mentions that he stopped by their office. Jin-Woo, now suspecting that Adam might be the person Jin-Ho mentioned as looking for him, asks, "What business do you have with me?" Adam responds that he wants to share some information with Jin-Woo. Intrigued, Jin-Woo asks, "What kind of information?" Adam replies, "Perhaps no country or institution in the world could provide the information I'm about to share, except us." When Jin-Woo asks why they are willing to share this information with him, Adam explains, "Because we benefit from sharing knowledge with special individuals like you." Adam further explains that they had originally planned to visit Jin-Woo for another reason, but after witnessing the events of the Jeju Island raid, their deputy director wanted to meet him in person. Smiling, Adam adds, "I'd say this is unprecedented. Our deputy director will explain the rest of the details. There's a car nearby if you'd like to meet with him." Curious about the information Adam wants to share, Jin-Woo gets into his car and thinks, "Information, huh?" Still unsure if the details they wish to provide are reliable, he tells Adam that he will give it some thought and contact him later. Smirking, Adam comments, "How silly of me. I forgot that a good hand should never be hidden when striking a deal." He then adds, "An upgrader." Jin-Woo is taken aback. Adam explains an upgrader is an awakened being who can enhance the abilities of another awakened being. Have you heard of them? As he speaks, the scene shifts to a car arriving at a building. Inside, Adam introduces Jin-Woo to Michael Connor, the deputy director of the Federal Bureau of Hunters. Michael shakes Jin-Woo's hand and says, "It's a pleasure to meet you." After the introductions, Adam announces that he will serve as their interpreter. Being direct, Michael slides a stack of immigration documents across the table and states, "It usually takes anywhere from 1 to 2 years for processing, but we're willing to make an exception for you." He adds, "Just say the word and you'll be granted American citizenship instantly." However, Jin-Woo responds seriously, "I came here because Mr. White said you had some information to share with me. An awakened being who can enhance the abilities of another, an upgrader. Is it really possible for a hunter's abilities to be upgraded?" Michael smiles and replies, "Actually, the person who possesses such power is here right now." Looking toward the back, he instructs his staff, "Please tell Miss Selner to come in." As Miss Selner approaches, Mr. Connor introduces her as Norma Selner, informing Jin-Woo that she is the only person in the world capable of enhancing the abilities of awakened beings. Observing her, Jin-Woo thinks to himself that she seems like a completely different type of awakened being. Michael then speaks up, telling Miss Selner to explain the extent of her powers. Miss Selner begins by addressing Jin-Woo, acknowledging that he might be skeptical about what she's about to say. She adds that everyone had the same doubtful look when they first heard it. However, she assures him that once he experiences her power, he will beg for more. This prompts Mr. Connor to call out to her. She steps closer to Jin-Woo. Miss Selner explains that Jin-Woo might already know that every awakened individual has a limit to their strength, and no one can surpass that limit. An awakened being's rank would always remain the same unless they underwent a second awakening, a fact that was common knowledge among hunters. Jin-Woo then asks, "But you can change that." Miss Selner responds, "Yes." She reveals that she has the power to help awakened beings break through their limitations. Through a 3-stage process, she can lift their restrictions. She admits that she never knew what to call this ability, but explains that she is capable of performing a forced reawakening. "In simple terms, I can bring out a person's true potential," she states. Mr. Connor agrees and confirms that everything she says is true. However, he points out that Miss Selner requires a long period of rest after each use of her power, meaning she can only help 3 or 4 individuals per year. Jin-Woo thinks to himself that he could be one of those 3 or 4 people. If what she said was true, then her ability must be incredible. He then asks, "How effective is the process exactly?" Miss Selner explains that the results vary for each individual, but after completing all 3 stages, a person would experience a strength increase of anywhere from 20% to 30%. Upon hearing this, Jin-Woo is stunned. A 20% to 30% increase in strength is insane. He now understands why Hwang Dong-soo chose to go to America despite facing so much public criticism. Jin-Woo thinks to himself, who would turn down such an offer? He then asks, what if someone finds out about her powers? Mr. Connor replies, explaining that this is exactly why she is under their protection. They ensure her safety while compensating her with a suitable salary. In return, Miss Selner helps enhance the abilities of their selected hunters. Mr. Connor then introduces her once again, stating that her power would be used on Jin-Woo as a gift. Still doubtful, Jin-Woo asks, "You mean as an offer?" Mr. Connor clarifies that once Jin-Woo becomes a hunter for the Federal Bureau, he would be given top priority and receive preferential benefits. Additionally, they would arrange meetings with the guild of his choice and to help him sign the best contract. Miss Selner slides a plate across the table and tells Jin-Woo that he doesn't need to decide right away, as they are simply easing him into the idea for now. Jin-Woo asks, "Excuse me?" Miss Selner reiterates, "As we said, this is a gift." Afterward, Mr. Connor asks for permission to lift his limits. Jin-Woo asks, "For nothing in return?" Mr. Connor explains that he should think of it as a complimentary service. Recalling Miss Selner's words that he would beg for more once he experienced it, Jin-Woo realizes she is confident in her results. Miss Selner then asks Jin-Woo to hold out his hand and look into her eyes closely, telling him that this is the first step. Watching the scene, Michael Connor thinks to himself that Jin-Woo has already taken the bait and is keeping his cool. However, once the first stage is complete, Jin-Woo will likely try to reach out to them, and if he is impatient, he might sign the papers right away. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo's hand begins to glow as Miss Selner holds it. Mr. Connor reflects on Jin-Woo's past achievements, how he succeeded in the Jeju Island raid with powers never seen before, and wonders what else Jin-Woo is capable of. As a green aura surrounds Jin-Woo, the light in his eyes intensifies and the process continues. Miss Selner's eyes begin to glow, and she becomes enveloped by a powerful aura. Suddenly, it becomes clear that she has shifted to a place filled with darkness. A face appears behind her, where only shadows remain. Gradually, a figure emerges from the darkness, slowly approaching her. The figure draws closer until it is right in front of her, staring with a terrifying glow in its eyes. At this, Miss Selner lets out a scream, and the process is abruptly halted, shocking everyone in the room. Suddenly, several agents draw their guns and point them at Jin-Woo, demanding to know what he has done to Miss Selner. Mr. Connor angrily shouts at them, "Have you lost your minds? Do you not recognize who he is?" Calling them morons, he tells them to go check on Miss Selner if they are concerned. Bowing his head, Mr. Connor apologizes to Jin-Woo for the agent's behavior, admitting that they stepped out of line. Still shocked, Jin-Woo replies, "It's all right." Fuming, Mr. Connor approaches one of the agents and coldly tells him, "If you had done something like this to Thomas Andre or Liu Zhigang, you'd all be dead by now. Got it?" The terrified agent quickly agrees. Mr. Connor then turns to Miss Selner and asks what happened. Noticing that she is still trembling, he remarks that she is drenched in sweat and asks if she is feeling unwell. After a moment, Mr. Connor turns to Jin-Woo and explains that Miss Selner is not feeling well, asking if it would be okay to reschedule the procedure for another time. Jin-Woo nods in agreement. Mr. Connor then instructs Adam to escort Jin-Woo out of the room. Once Jin-Woo has left, Mr. Connor turns to Miss Selner and asks again, "What happened?" Her face is still filled with fear, and her hands tremble as she stutters. He's a king, and a powerful one at that. Mr. Connor is stunned by her words and asks, "Are you saying Jin-Woo is as strong as a national-level hunter?" Miss Selner shakes her head, unable to explain further, and reveals that she has never experienced anything like this before. "He is a king," she repeats, "but not an ordinary one." She then adds, "While I was looking at him, he was also looking back at me." An infinite darkness within him, Miss Selner states that there is no limit to his power. The scene shifts to Jin-Ho, who is sitting in the office, handling some business. He mutters to himself, "These haters, sending complaints after getting sued and crying like kids, that won't work." After some time, he finishes his work and thinks, "I've managed to single out all the groups slandering Jin-Woo." As he leans back to rest, he suddenly notices Jin-Woo standing behind him. Jin-Woo casually says, "You sure are working hard." Jin-Ho sighs, thinking he comes and goes without making a sound. Jin-Woo asks, "Any trouble?" Jin-Ho reassures him, everything is going smoothly. Then, noticing Jin-Woo's attire, he asks, "Why are you dressed like that?" Without answering, Jin-Woo hands him a bag full of magical cores and says, "You said we needed money for the guild." Jin-Ho, wide-eyed, looks at the bag and exclaims, "With this, we won't have to worry about paying salaries for our employees." Jin-Woo raises an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Jin-Ho reminds him, "We still need another member for the guild. If we want to hire someone, we need to pay them." Jin-Woo nods. "Even if we just need someone to fill the empty spot in the guild, I want someone sincere, someone who will stay and work with us." With a serious look, Jin-Ho tells Jin-Woo, "There's one more urgent thing we need to take care of first." Jin-Woo looks at him curiously. "What is it?" Jin-Ho says, "We need a name for our guild." Jin-Woo chuckles. "I thought it was something serious." Jin-Ho insists, "This is a very serious matter." He then starts suggesting names. "How about the Sunyu Guild? It sounds natural since Yu is in both our names. Or maybe the Wuho Guild, combining our last name characters. Or the Jin-Jin Guild, using our middle characters." Hearing the suggestions, Jin-Woo firmly decides the guild will be called Solo Play Guild. Jin-Ho stares at him in disbelief. Was that supposed to be funny? As they discuss, a knock at the door interrupts them. Jin-Ho walks over and opens it. A voice asks, "Is this Hunter Jin-Woo's guild office?" Jin-Ho nods. "Yes, it is." When he sees who it is, his eyes widen in shock. Standing before him is Hunter Cha Han. Jin-Ho stammers, "Hunter Cha, what are you doing here?" Cha calmly responds, "I wish to join your guild." After they sit down, Jin-Woo leans forward and asks, "Could you clarify why you're here?" Cha repeats herself, "Like I said, I want to join your guild." Jin-Woo, utterly confused, thinks to himself, what is going on? Still suspicious, he asks, did the chairman ask you to join my guild? Or did Hunter Choi kick you out of the guild? Cha shakes her head, that's not the reason. With a serious expression, Jin-Woo asks, then why would you want to join my solo play guild? She blinks solo play guild, Cha raises an eyebrow. Did you seriously name your guild that? Jin-Woo nods. Yes, what's the problem with the name? Jin-Ho immediately interjects, I never agreed to that. What about the names I suggested? Ignoring him, Jin-Woo studies Cha closely, analyzing her pulse, breath, and expression. She's pretending to be calm, but she can't fool me. He then asks again, why are you trying to join my guild? It's been 2 years since you awakened. You should still be under contract with the Hunter Guild. Cha replies, I have enough money to pay the penalty. Jin-Woo's eyes narrow, she's even willing to pay the penalty? He tells her, our guild currently doesn't have enough resources to properly compensate a hunter like you. Cha smiles, that's not a problem, I don't need a down payment either. Jin-Woo asks, then why would you want to join us? There's nothing for you to gain here. Cha hesitates, thinking to herself, how should I explain this? Even if I do, it'll definitely sound crazy. She reflects at first, I was just drawn to the fact that his mana didn't smell like other hunters, but during the Jeju Island raid, I thought I was going to die. The scene shifts to the aftermath of the Jeju Island raid. Cha regains consciousness and immediately asks the chairman where she is. The chairman, sitting beside her, calmly explains, you're in a helicopter. We just landed at the Hunters Association. He adds soon, they'll send you and the others to the hospital. Cha, still groggy, asks, what about Jin-Woo? Was he the one who saved us from that monster? The chairman nods, yes, it was him. Hearing this, Chi's eyes widen, it wasn't a dream. A chill runs down her spine as she thinks to herself, I almost died this time. A similar situation might happen in the future, one where I can't possibly avoid death. Cha-haen stands in the present, lost in thought, trying to figure out how to explain everything to him. Her face turns slightly red as she thinks, I want to stand by your side until the very end. Seeing her flustered expression, Jin-Woo raises an eyebrow and wonders, what's up with her? Is it something she can't tell me? As she tries to compose herself, Jin-Woo's thoughts continue, why won't she answer me? Looking at her blushing face, he can tell she's hiding something. He asks again, so you won't answer me? Cha finally responds, I just want to live comfortably. Is something wrong with that? Hearing her answer, Jin-Woo thinks to himself, Hunter Cha is only 22 years old. The burden of being an S-rank hunter must be overwhelming for her. The hunters also suffered greatly during the Jeju Island raid, so I can understand why she wants to join us. After a moment, he tells her, there's an entrance test for our guild. Cha frowns, that wasn't in the recruiting notice. Jin-Woo shrugs, maybe the guild's vice master made a mistake, since it's a new rule. Turning to Jin-Ho, he asks, can you go fetch us some drinks and snacks? Once Jin-Ho leaves, Cha looks at him curiously. What kind of test is it? Jin-Woo smirks. You have to defeat one of my summons. Cha crosses her arms, am I that weak in your eyes? She pauses before asking, what kind of summon? Jin-Woo replies, for you, Hunter Cha, I'll use my strongest summon. They both stand up, and Cha asks, when's the test? Jin-Woo grins, let's do it now. He suggests, how about the Asakation's gymnasium? Then he thinks to himself, this is a great chance to test if I can use shadow exchange with 2 people. Looking at Cha, he tells her, you don't need to leave, we can take a shortcut. He steps closer and says, we just have to stick together for a moment. As they prepare, Jin-Woo activates Shadow Exchange. Darkness engulfs them, and they vanish in an instant. Meanwhile, Jin-Ho returns to the room with snacks and drinks. As he steps inside, his face goes pale. Instead of Jin-Woo and Cha, a high orc stands in front of him. For a brief moment, they stare at each other awkwardly. Then, before Jinho can react, the orc takes the food from his hands and eats it in one bite. Jinho blinks. What the hell just happened? The scene shifts to the gymnasium, where Jin-Woo and Cha have teleported. Cha, still stunned, turns to Jin-Woo and asks, "How did you do that?" Meanwhile, Jin-Woo thinks to himself, "I was right. Shadow exchange works like a gateway, since I was able to move with someone else." Ignoring her question, he says, "Let's get started." Cha hesitates, "I left my weapon behind." Jin-Woo smirks, "You mean that pickaxe?" Chi's face flushes with embarrassment. "That's not my weapon." Still grinning, Jin-Woo teases, "I was just kidding." She sighs and then remembers, there might be a weapon worth borrowing in the storage. Opening the storage room, she steps inside, scanning the racks of weapons. These are reserve weapons, so they aren't the best, but they'll do for practice. She grabs a sword and walks back out. "I'm ready." Jin-Woo looks at her and asks, "Will you be alright?" "That's not the weapon you normally use." Cha shakes her head. "It doesn't matter. Monsters never fight on our terms anyway." Jin-Woo nods in agreement. She's right. He then wonders, who should I summon? An ordinary soldier would be shredded to pieces. After a moment, he makes his decision. Summoning Igris, he announces, "Among my soldiers, he is the best swordsman." Cha watches as the imposing knight materializes before her. She asks, "What are the conditions for winning or losing?" Jin-Woo explains, "You win by defeating the summon. You lose if you surrender." He thinks to himself, "I said I'd call my strongest soldier to test her, but summoning Beru would be too much." With everything set, Jin-Woo gives the signal to begin the test. As Cha gathers her mana, a thought crosses Jin-Woo's mind. She said weapons don't matter. He watches closely, intrigued to see just how far her strength can take her. Jin-Woo suddenly raised a hand, halting the fight. "Wait a moment." He turned to Cha Haein and asked, "Turn around for a second." As she complied, Jin-Woo reached into his inventory, retrieving a powerful weapon, the Demon King's longsword. He handed the sword to Igris, instructing him, "Use this." Then turning back to Cha, he said, "Alright, now, begin." The moment the battle resumed, Igris activated the sword's ability, sending a massive wave of electricity surging toward Cha. But before the attack could land, she managed to dodge with incredible speed. Watching from the sidelines, Jin-Woo analyzed her movements. As expected, she's fast. If this were an average person, they'd be dead from even the slightest scratch of that swing. As the fight intensified, their clashes echoed through the gymnasium, creating a thunderous noise. In his office, Chairman Go Gun-hee sat at his desk, frowning. There wasn't supposed to be anyone in the gym today. Curious, he picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Connect the CCTV footage from the gym to my office." As the screen lit up, he was surprised to see Jin-Woo and Hunter Cha engaged in battle. His eyes narrowed as he observed them. When did these two enter the building? Then a memory surfaced. He recalled the expression on Cha's face when he had told her that Jin-Woo was the one who saved her. With a knowing smile, he thought to himself, "I really was blind." Turning back to his phone, he gave an order. "Turn off all the CCTV cameras in the gym. Log it as an inspection day." His assistant complied, and the chairman leaned back in his chair, watching the screen until suddenly, the ground trembled. Feeling the vibrations shake the building, he let out a soft chuckle. As expected, they're enjoying their youth. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo stood in shock. Igris had been defeated. Cha, catching her breath, looked at him and asked, "Was the Black Knight really the strongest summon you have? You said you'd use your strongest. Please summon him now." Jin-Woo raised an eyebrow. "You might get hurt." Cha, unfazed, responded confidently, "I'll be fine. I would like to fight him, once again." At that moment, a dark aura surged behind Jin-Woo. As the air grew heavy with a sinister energy, he summoned Beru, his strongest shadow. Looking at Cha one last time, he asked, "Are you sure you'll be okay?" His gaze remains steadfast, her grip on her sword tightening. The episode ends here. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. See you next time.